The Eagles are coming is one of the most maligned lines in all of Tolkien's Legendarium. It's become cliché for the announcement of Tolkien's Deus Ex Machinas to swoop in and save the day and take our heroes out of trouble. But in all honesty, the Eagles, and Gwaihir in particular, have provided us with some of the most breathtaking scenes in the Peter Jackson double trilogy. Gwaihir is a great profile, and I wanted to add him to my Radagast Alliance army. I like the fine cast and the old metal Gwaihir respectively. I do intend to pick these poses up in the future to diversify the poses of the Eagles, particularly if I run them in large numbers, but I wasn't overly thrilled about the Forge World one, particularly the base. I'm just not overly fond of bases that have specific foes on them, because it doesn't look right if he's not fighting the Hunter Orcs. Therefore, I decided to make my own for a fraction of the cost. I'm Joe from Windish Wargamers, and here's how I made Gwaihir the Windlord for MESBG. Remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more content. To start this off, I'd need a big bird. I stumbled across this one from an Etsy seller. Now if you had a 3D printer you could obviously make this for free, but I found this quite a reasonable price. I chose the 80mm one, and he's absolutely massive. Look at him in comparison to a plastic eagle. Huge. Very befitting of the Windlord himself. This sculpt is such a big bird, you could even use him as Thorondor, the larger first age eagle that is mentioned several times in the Silmarillion. The 80mm base that it comes with is very large and it looks like it's splashing water. If that's your thing, then feel free to keep it, but I like making my life more complicated and then complaining about it later, so I decided to make him a tree. This would allow me to give him some height, because he's so massive it'd be very difficult to get miniatures in to base contact with him. I picked out the 60mm base, built it up with some cork to make the appearance of rocks. They were glued up in layers and then the edges were ripped off with pliers to give a smoother transition. The tree itself was made of a thick stick. This was hot glued in place. And then smaller sticks were hot glued on to give the appearance of branches protruding from that main trunk. I wanted to keep the natural coloration of the sticks, so I didn't paint it. Instead, I decided to cover over the hot glue texture with moss. I used two moss textures for this, AK Interactive moss texture. This is great for that kind of crumbly moss effect. And then I did some kind of streaking green using Dirty Down moss. Both of them combined to make this really nice effect on the branches. I used some base readies, some tufts and some flowers to really spice up the 60mm base. Originally in my head I wanted to use contrast paints to do this job quickly, however that quickly fell apart, which you'll see in a second. So I primed Gwaihir white and started picking out the detail of the feathers with some contrast paints. After basing the talons and the beak with yellow. The overall effect of the feathers was much too orange for my liking. I've got nothing against gingers, I just don't want my eagles to be ginger. So I left the black in place of the hood and the ends of the feathers, and I decided to go back in on the more orange colour and cover it up with some Rhinox hide. At this stage, the tip of the beak and the claws were picked out with black. And in real time, I left him for a couple of weeks just to kind of get my head around what I wanted to do, and then I came up with this idea. I did an all-over dry brush of an ivory colour. That was to blend between the black and the dark brown. So now I have my highest highlight and my lowest low light for all of the feathers. I decided to use thin down contrast paint to glaze on some sepia and some brown washes. I was really relieved with how this turned out. It gave a really nice natural look to the feathers. In my opinion, it gives a similar effect to the way eagle feathers look in real life. Mixing in an ivory to that existing yellow, I highlighted up on the talons and the beak before going to a pure ivory for the tip of the beak and the talons. I hit the beak and the claws with a gloss varnish, that way it would set it apart from the matte finish on the feathers. The eyes were simply painted with an orangey brown, black for the pupils and a dash of white for the reflection. So I have the tree, I have Gwaihir painted. So far so easy, right? Here's where it starts to go terribly wrong. I need to find a way to attach this very heavy, very large eagle to the tree without obscuring the detail and also making it very balanced. My first attempt was to pin it in between its legs to the very tippy top of the tree, kind of like the angel or the star on top of a Christmas tree. Now some of you have probably already recognised the issue, which was completely oblivious to me, which is that because he's so large, it's not going to be very balanced. I did try and offset this by having some weight at the bottom of the tree by gluing on some 2p coins. At this stage he was too big and too unstable to even go on my turntable. So I tried to get some footage of him on the tabletop, but I hate this footage, it looks cursed. And the miniature's just completely unplayable at this point, tipping over with even the most minimal contact. And he fell over and broke. You can see on his right wing at the very tip, one of the feathers is broken. I could never find that, I couldn't get it back. So I removed him from the top and tried to find a different position. Now I dropped him a good few other times after this as well, so I had to glue about 5 feathers from his left wing back on, but I did eventually settle on this pose. I lowered him down closer to the highest branch. This moved the center of gravity further down, closer to the base, making him more stable, and instead of 1 pin between his legs, I was able to put 2 pins on his back, so he had good connection point from his tail feather all the way up to basically his, what would be his shoulder blades, almost his spine. All I had to do from there was cover up the crusty superglue residue from the previous attempt to pin him in place. For this, I just utilised some more of that moss effect previously used. I much prefer this new pose for my Gwaihir. far more reminiscent of the out of the frying pan into the fire scene from the end of An Unexpected Journey. You can even balance members of Thorin's company on the branches to make it look like he's swooping down to pick them up. Let me know what you think of him in the comments below. Let me know if there's any other projects you want to see me do, be it miniatures or be it monsters. Also, be sure to check the video description for a link to our Discord. We have a great group of hobbyists in there that really encourage each other and inspire each other with their work. Hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to give it a like or a dislike if you disliked it. I'm Joe from Windlord Wargamers. I'll catch you in the next one.